A story about attraction, avoidance, and the mess we make when we avoid our own pain. I wasn't myself when this story began, not because I was broken, but because I was untethered. When you're unwell, even temporarily, you reach for something to explain the ache. Sometimes that looks like love, sometimes it looks like identity. What I didn't know then was that it was neither. It was an invitation to heal. At the time, the multitude of masculines that had come before had already left more emotional bruises than heartfelt memories. And to be fair, it wasn't just dude disappointment I was decompressing from. I was living in daily despair, adrift in myself, trapped in a body that was malfunctioning and a brain that wouldn't stop glitching, unable to decide what mood it felt, let alone what day it was. God may as well have launched me straight out of a cannon towards the event horizon to be swallowed by a black hole, and honestly, I might have mistaken the implosion for personal growth. I was on the tail end of a long, somewhat scary bout of depression. I'd been medicated for years, but had grown tired of the emptiness that came with it. Standing at yet another crossroads, desperate to understand myself again and feel even a flicker of joy or hope. But let's be real, it wasn't exactly my best decision making era. I was exhausted by numbness and desperate to feel something, which in hindsight is not a solid strategy for clarity. It goes without saying, I wasn't in a great place when my next love lesson showed up. I'd been watching her for a while, not in a creepy stalker kind of way, but in admiration or maybe lustful desire. Her pint sized stature went mostly unnoticed as she shamelessly took up space with her seductive swagger and magnetic stare. A walking red flag in high end kicks with matching red ticks. A vibe that pulled in everything she wanted with energy alone. She wore heartbreak like an accessory because she knew she was too cool for any room she ever walked into. But as with all good things that are off limits, so was she. Her entanglement with a mutual friend of ours meant she was out of bounds until she wasn't. That night at the club, I glanced over to the stage and saw her standing there in full big dick energy, scanning the room for whatever might tickle her fancy. It was in that moment I decided I was in, and nothing was going to change my mind. We got to know each other across tables, cocktails, share plates, and too many late nights. There was always food, always laughter, always a little too much of everything. There were other indulgences too, and while that wasn't my style, I still got high off the vibe. The same faces, the same drinks, the same loop of avoidance masquerading as connection. It was all a little excessive. And if I'm being real, she was exactly that, an overindulgence. She was the most intoxicating temptation I'd ever laid eyes on. The kind of dangerous sexy I knew could ruin me, but compelled me to lean in anyway. As our unexpected attraction grew, irresistibility took over. That version of me was quickly hypnotized by the newness of it all, her charm, the way she always knew exactly what to say and precisely when to say it, as if it were somehow scripted even. My flavor had always been vanilla bean males, predictable and straight down the line. Same team territory had never even crossed my mind. Had anyone told me years earlier I'd be sharpening my scissors and strapping in for what could only be described as a midlife crisis, I would have laughed in their face. I thought I knew what I like. I thought I knew my boundaries. Turns out I didn't know shit. So there I was, face planted in vagina, living my best life, not even questioning how we got there or why it all felt so teenager like. But as this short lived situationship with the sexy tomboy played out, so did the development of my feelings, deepening minute by minute until I was in far deeper than I ever intended to be. I knew on some level that I wouldn't last with this. Lying there one night, side by side and sweaty, belting out Mariah anthems like good girls from the 90s, she turns to me and asks, "Would you ever marry a woman?" Caught up in the moment, answered faster than my heart could process. Of course. She paused and then she says, "I don't trust bi women." And just like that, I caught glimpses of why I was there in that exact predicament. I felt wedged between my intuition and a hard place. My intuition knew the situationship was just another distraction from sitting in my pain and doing the work I needed to do for healing. And with a complete absence of any penis, the hard place just so happened to be this jaw-droppingly magnetic tomboy who made avoidance feel a little too good. She told me she didn't want anything serious. The problem was, as always, I did. She'd warned me about her emotional unavailability, even called herself damaged, wearing her commitment issues like a badge of honor. She told me exactly who she was, and I believed her. I just didn't want to. I was vulnerable, and she did know that. A modern day player, charming, untouchable, not just wanting the cake, but the whole damn patisserie. My family warned me more than once, but I was infatuated, desperate to make her, us, fit the mold I wanted so badly to believe in. I gave into the fear of being alone, chasing anything that distracted me from it, even if it meant risking another broken heart. Because risking it all felt easier than sitting in my feels. I dropped straight into my default setting, overgiving, overextending, trying to hold on, to make her hold on too, over the top dinners, grazing boards with Vino, always finishing with sexy time dessert. Nothing was ever too much. I was doing the most. And she didn't just fail to acknowledge it, she never returned the gesture. Taking me out to dinner once the entire time and acting like it was some grand romantic gesture. I was the comfy bed she'd collapse into after nights on the town, almost always rolling in at the crack of dawn, glitter still clinging to her neck, the scent of tequila in the air from one too many by the bedazzled pole. I'd even cook her favourite breakfast at 3:30 in the morning when she wasn't fun, just drunk, messy, and half asleep. But I wasn't bi or gay. Yet there I was, elbow deep, buried in pussy, turning it up hotter than on a summer's day with melted ice cream running down my chin. She was complicated, carrying wounds she hadn't made peace with, the kind that turn connection into a tug of war you can never win. Inevitably, her behaviour began to tell me more than her words did. Clearly distracted by something new, she began to move on. Sensing I had been getting a little too invested, she started pulling back. Or maybe it was that she had grown used to running from connection and intimacy. I don't know. I felt the disconnection. I kept pressing her for answers as the uneasy quiet began to hurt my ears. Reluctantly, she agreed to a talk. That afternoon, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You are up here, and I'm down here," her hands gesturing a distance that may as well have translated to oceans apart. She sheepishly went on, "I'm like still a kid in a sandbox, and you're a woman with kids who has it mostly together." Kudos to her for at least having awareness, right? And just like that, the familiar feeling of yet another ending knocked me to my knees, hurling me straight into the eye of another healing storm nothing could have prepared me for. I wasted no time unpacking the situationship because even if I'd wanted to avoid it, my heart wouldn't have let me. Admitting to myself that I was only bilingual and not bisexual was disappointing, I'll admit. My family checked in with me, offering care and kindness. One of them, however, skipped the sympathy entirely. She was direct, irritated, and real. You get 24 hours to cry over this idiot, Christina. After that, no more. What the fuck was that even? And to be fair, I had kind of asked myself the same question. What shattered me wasn't the ending itself, but the familiar pain festering beneath it. That old infected feeling of not being enough, not good enough, not worthy enough of any relationship. And when that wound finally split open, the pressure released all at once. The sound that came out of me wasn't a cry so much as a howl, raw, alien, and unrecognizable. I'd never heard myself make that sound before. It was confronting, but it was also exactly what needed to come out. Looking back, it still amazes me how this situationship even materialized. If I'd turned up the volume on my inner guidance just a notch, I would have heard it loud and clear. Christina, what the fuck are you doing? This love lesson showed me that I only ever see what I'm willing to see, especially when it feeds an old wound. The fantasy, the distraction, the illusion that love could heal me if I just gave more. Her avoidance mirrored my own lack of self connection. And for a while, that felt like chemistry. I wasn't falling in love. I was falling into roles: the caretaker, the fixer, the overgiver. I'd mistaken my wounds for my identity, bending myself into a pretzel to prove I was worth staying for. And maybe that's why these mirrored lessons repeat so much in the 3D. People telling us exactly who they are while we choose not to listen because they soothe the wound, even if it does keep us a little stuck. In hindsight, this connection was another invitation to heal, one I was refusing to see at the time. I was caught up just like her, avoiding myself to people unable to give what they hadn't yet learned to give to themselves. I wasn't confused about who I was drawn to. I was confused about why I kept being drawn to the same kind of emptiness. And so over time, I began to see that we attract what reflects our own frequency. And I was still tuned to proving my worth through service, softness, and sacrifice. I thought if I just gave a little more, tolerated a little longer, loved a little harder, maybe this time it would stick. I learned that love built on self abandonment isn't love at all. It's survival dressed up as devotion. And once I tended to the wound, once I drained it, cleaned it, and let it breathe, I freed myself up. What we don't tend to festers, and what we face can finally heal. Emotional hygiene, I've learned, is not optional. In forgiving myself, I had come to a liberating truth. Just like her, I was never her sexual preference. And that truth did not make me less, just misaligned. Because I am not my preferences. I'm Christina, undefined by who I'm drawn to or what colors I favor or what food I like on any given day or what briefly flickered in a moment of unhealed pain. This moment was a glitch in time, brief, intense, necessary. It didn't define me and it didn't alter my core. It simply revealed to me what still needed care. The pint-sized tomboy and I were never meant to be more than two people orbiting the same wound from opposite ends. And like always, it wasn't about her. It was an energetic assignment disguised as romance.